Hi there everyone, it's really good to see you again. I'm Jenny Kirk, it's great to have you along, and today we're going to be doing another review of an item from Heljan, and this is one which is part of the Rails Christmas sale. So I have bought it, so it's not a freebie, but I thought I'd let you know about these. They're a particular model which I've had on my radar for quite some time. And up until now, I thought that they were really, really expensive, but Rails has got them on offer at the moment, all of the different liveries. So without further ado, come with me and I'll show you what I've got. A big thank you to Combat Bunny and Tim's Trains who donated money on the Super Chat. So here it is. It's one of the Heljan 1366 class locomotives. In fact, I'm just going to show you there on the end. It's catalogue number 1322, and this is locomotive number 1370 in GWR green with the GWR letters on the tank. And that's important when you compare it to some of the other liveries that are available. So we've got the GWR shirt button logo and Great Western spelled out in full. There's also BR liveries too. But this particular one, I've gone for GWR on the pannier tanks. And it's a locomotive that as I said in the intro, it's been on my radar for quite some time, but I've always thought it was really, really expensive. And actually, the very similar in terms of design 1361 class pannier as well are also in the Rails sale for exactly the same price. So there's a good choice between the two. Now I'm going to show you this as well. I do like this from Heljan. It kind of counters some of the claims that, oh, you're charging more and more and more. This actually shows you how many different parts go into assembling one of these. Handy, I suppose, in some ways, to be able to actually order up replacement parts, but I think it just shows you how complex these models are to get the quality that we've come to know these days. And let's have a look what else we've got here. We have a brief history of the prototype, and it's interesting actually that this particular locomotive is one of only two classes of panniers that had outside valve gear. More normally, you're probably familiar with locomotives from the Great Western Railway, pannier tank locomotives, shunting locos, with inside cylinders. But these bucked the trend, and they were built to primarily replace some older inherited locomotives. Now, it's not to say that locomotives inherited from other railway companies didn't have outside valve gear, but this was pretty much this in the 1361 class were the only times that the Great Western Railway actually built from new locomotives for themselves in that way. And they were actually, in terms of pannier tanks, they were quite late builds, around, I think it was 1934. So one of the things that makes these stand out actually is these are the locomotives that displaced the BT well tanks. Now, I think everybody's probably quite familiar with those amazing survivors from the Victorian age, and really out of virtue of the fact that the branch line that they ran on had particularly sharp curves that necessitated very short wheelbase locomotives. And it was found eventually that these locomotives could be used to actually replace those BT well tanks. So it's these you've got to thank for them, the final three being displaced, although two of those three did make it to preservation. Of these, there were 6 built, and one of which has made it to preservation. But they did actually get around a bit, notwithstanding their work on that particular branch line, displacing the BT well tanks. They got used as shunters at places like Swindon, also Newton Abbot, and they were also trialled on the Weymouth tramway. So there's plenty of excuses for making use of these locomotives on a variety of prototypical situations, but I just think it's a beautiful locomotive. And actually, when I've finally been able to get one of these in the flesh, I have to say I'm not disappointed. The build quality is really, really good. The weight is actually quite exceptional, and it's one of the things that Heljan do very well, is the amount of weight that they can squeeze into a locomotive. So there's an awful lot of metal hidden away in here, and I'm looking at here, the amount of detail they've got as well, though, is really second to none. We can see daylight, as per the prototype, straight underneath the boiler that's hidden away underneath these pannier tanks. And the pannier tanks themselves are a weird shape, but they are replicated perfectly by Heljan. Even down to the fact that, unlike a lot of other pannier tanks, you actually can't see the top of the boiler across there. On a lot of other pannier tanks, you get almost like this sort of ridge down the middle, which is actually the top of the boiler. On this, the pannier tanks are ever so slightly higher, which meant they've got a completely flat top. And that is an area which could have been messed up ever so easily. Flat surfaces are ones which can actually be quite hard to get to look right, but Heljan have managed it with this, with an awful lot of detail in terms of the plating that the tanks would have been made of, the rivet detail, but also stuff like these filler caps for water. We've got a dome on there, which feeling that, yeah, it's pretty secure on. I was wondering whether it might be a part that came off, but it doesn't. And then we've got the safety valve bonnet on there. We talked about this on the previous video about the Oxford Rail Dean class, and on this actually I'm quite interested. I always thought that the Great Western Railway kept these as quite highly polished brass, but actually on this it is finished in the green colour, and I can only presume that at certain periods the GWR went in and out of favour of keeping highly polished brasswork everywhere. Now, the signature thing of these locomotives is the outside valve gear, but really this is amazingly well done. We've got metal slide rods, metal crossheads, everything is metal. I mean, have you ever seen anything this metal? Well, perhaps anything other than a guy with a guitar stood on top of a tour bus travelling across a desert or something, I don't know. But I digress. The wheels as well are particularly fine for me. I do love these single-spoked wheels. There's a lot of air that you see through there. They're true to the prototype. There's a lot of space, and that really actually captures the look of this locomotive. When you see it running, you see so much detail through the wheels, and that, I guess, is an area which could have fallen foul of companies using, you know, sort of fairly standard wheel inners or wheel inners with a flat back. I've seen that as well, but with these, we're transparent all the way through, and it really does benefit from that. We've also got the outside cylinders. They're perfectly replicated. There's no cutout, doesn't need to be any, because there's no pony truck or anything to get in the way. But we also have factory fitted the drain cocks underneath, and they are really quite nice. The brake gear as well is in there, and that is actually, it feels like a metal casting. So that is very, very durable. And then we've got all the brake shoes are lining up with the wheel treads, as you would expect. But again, it's an area which can be messed up quite easily, but Heljan have really delivered on this. The coupling pockets here, they're NEM pockets. You get provided with this little detailing bag, which in the main is this couplings. There's some very nice, actually, fire rakes, a little shovel there. There's an awful lot of stuff there that you can pose any which way you want as cameos. But interestingly enough, there's also a second bag here, and we've got some lamps as well to go on the front, and that is a really nice touch, which a lot of these locomotives would have carried these very distinctive lamps, so it's really nice of Heljan to give you this bag of bits and pieces to go with it. There's also this very strange looking pipe, and I can only assume that that is something to do with going underneath the boiler. In fact, there already looks to be a pipe in place, so I'm not entirely sure why they've sent another one. I'll take it, but I'm not quite sure whether there's supposed to be a second one somewhere, which is a user-fitted item if you so choose. It's also got these very fine sanding pipes. They're metal, very, very strong actually, quite resilient to getting knocked. The only thing I notice here is that Heljan, they use a standard of plugins for the NEM pockets which are different to every other manufacturer. So just be very careful not to damage these, because I'm guessing you'll have to source them direct from Heljan, whereas all of the other major manufacturers tend to use ones with a kind of triangular tail. This has got a bit of a curve to it. Pickup on this locomotive is from all 6 wheels, and actually I've found running of this locomotive, it is really quite sweet because of that extra weight on there. It does handle the track really, really well. On the cab sides, we've got etched plates firmly fastened on there, and that is a really nice touch. It's going to put some of the aftermarket companies out of business if manufacturers start fitting these etched plates like this. They are really nicely done. The front face of the locomotive is captured really, really well, and we've got ready applied vacuum pipes, and I'm not entirely sure whether, I don't think they had air brakes, but certainly maybe that's a steam heating pipe or something like that. And then we've got the 3-link couplings that are actually factory applied, and these are actually good enough to, if you want to run your stock using 3-link couplings, these actually work. They're robust enough to actually use. In terms of buffers, all 4 are sprung, but one thing I have noticed is that 3 of the 4 buffers seem all right, but on my example, I'm going to have to investigate that. For some reason, it seems, yeah, the spring has been assembled wrong, so it shouldn't be a big issue, but I need to dismantle that and move the spring. At the moment, as you can see there, the buffers are at unequal lengths, but that should be a fairly easy fix, so I'm not unduly worried about that. Handrails on the pannier sides are fine, they're metal, they're factory applied and really, really nice. Looking towards the back, we've got turned brass whistles down there, just behind the safety valve bonnet, and got the characteristic little shield on here, which very characteristic of Great Western Railway locomotives, and I guess that's just to disperse the steam away from the cab windows and would also deflect some of the sound so it wouldn't deafen the crew. On the back, we have coal modelled in the bunker, and I'm just going to see whether this comes out. I have a feeling that it will come out. It feels like it should. Just can't quite get a purchase on it. I can see it moving, so I'm going to call it that coal load can be taken out if you so desire, and I suspect that there is an empty bunker behind that. Looking at the quality of the plastic moulding there, it's probably something that would benefit from taking out the plastic insert and just gluing in a small amount of crushed real coal. But, you know, if you want to leave it like that, it's okay, but I think you could improve that area. The back windows on the cab, we've got this characteristic protected grate on there. That's all nicely done. I'm just seeing, it appears to actually be moulded as part of the actual glazing, but it is very effectively done. Looking to the inside of the cab, it's actually really hard to see in there. In fact, very hard to see in there. By the looks of it, yeah, there is tampo printing on the back head there. I can see that certainly the gauges appear to be picked out in silver, but I'm not entirely sure. I think you'd have to go in and really dismantle this to get inside. Certainly, when I've had the cab off to Dccc Fitting, and I'll get to that a little bit more detail in a moment, I haven't seen any easy way to get into this cab. So if you're wanting to put a crew in, you're going to have to get very careful with tweezers. And it does seem that if there's tampo printing on the back head, there must be a way to get inside there. But it's, you know, it just shows the quality of this item, that there's detail where you can't realistically get to see it. Dccc fitting of this locomotive couldn't be easier, and gone are the days where you have to dismantle the full body, taking off detail as you go, and really struggle. On this, Heljan have got you covered. There are 4 screws, 2 at the back, either side of the NEM pocket, and then 2 adjacent to the rearmost axle. When you undo these 4 screws, the full cab assembly literally just slides up and off, and what you will see is a 6-pin DCC socket vertically mounted within the space that's within the bunker. Put in your DCC chip of choice. I've personally used a Bachmann 6-pin chip simply because what was available at the time of ordering this, but the space does look big enough to accommodate a variety of different chips from different manufacturers. On the back here, we've got the buffer beam. The red is printed on without any bleed over or fuzziness, and we have the locomotive's number in kind of a serif font there with a black low lighting, and that looks really nice and crisp. Again, all of the pipework is factory fitted, and we get that NEM pocket which we can add our couplings to, which I will be doing so that this locomotive can be used as a true shunter on my layout. The GWR on the boiler is nicely applied, again sharp and crisp as you would expect, and there is also some lettering on the sole bar, SDN. I'm not entirely sure about that, as in what it signifies. I would have thought SND perhaps for sand, but SDN is what is on there. We've also got the bracket fixed on here, and this appears to be metal as well, so it is very, very robust. The cab steps too, very, very robust. Don't feel like there's any risk of them falling off. Underneath the boiler we have spring detail, pipework, toolboxes. Everything is there, and it does look really, really good. So all in all, can I recommend this model? Yes, I can. I bought this model with my own money because it's a model that I have been looking forward to for a long, long time. And with Rails having this at a low, low price, well, certainly a lot lower than I've seen it elsewhere, I took this opportunity to buy it. And I am certainly not disappointed. Would I buy others? Certainly yes, and it's well worth checking out the 1361 class as well, which is somewhat similar but has a saddle tank, and these two are in the offer. If you're looking for these, check out the links down below and that'll take you straight to the Rails website to pick these up. In terms of an overall score, well, I can't really find a lot, if anything, to fault with this. That front buffer is a bit of a narc straight out of the box, and I am going to take some points off for that. As I always say in these reviews, I review them as I find them, because that's how you would find them. So it is repairable, but it's a bit of a grind that I have to do that myself. In terms of everything else, running qualities have been superb. Pulling power and haulage is really, really good because of the weight of this locomotive, and everything else on it is really, really nice. Overall, I would give this maybe a good 9.2 out of 10. It is an expensive locomotive. The rail sale helps, bringing it down to a little bit of a shade underneath £100. It's still expensive for a shunting locomotive, but the Heljan models are good quality and you won't be disappointed. Well, don't forget that if you want to get yourself one of these as well, follow the links down below and that'll help you find exactly the model that you're after. But until next time, don't forget to like this video and share it too, and that's really important. And subscribe to the channel and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying thanks again. I've really enjoyed your company. Bye for now. Today's video has been brought to you in part thanks to the generous donation of my fans on Patreon. And a huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Alec Ralph, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Alan, oorail.co.uk and Tepic. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knobty Mouse. Thanks and catch you later.